2 years since an explosion ripped through the Beirut port. Where are we today with the investigation?
Well, I'm sad to say that we really aren't far along. The investigation is still in the preliminary phase, sort of the evidence gathering phase. We don't have an indictment. It hasn't gone to trial. And the reason for that is that Lebanon's top politicians have decided to fight this investigation tooth and nail.
What more evidence do they need that this was a man-made explosion?
Well, I think many people would say that they don't want that evidence to be out there. We have so much reporting, really the investigative work that has been done by journalists, by rights organizations, really has put together the events that preceded this explosion and the trail of responsibilities that go to different ministries, to security agencies. But we have no accountability, again, because the suspects themselves have filed dozens of lawsuits to try and get the investigator removed. And so now there's been no movement on this probe for at least 6 months. It's extremely difficult for the families marking this occasion 2 years on, this day of mourning, to see that no accountability has come, and there really is no looking forward. You really don't see that it's going to be any different.
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable that just a year ago I was watching protesters in the streets of Beirut walking down to the port. Their anger, their sadness, their grief was palpable. Do you anticipate we'll see anything like that today?
Yeah, I mean, this is an occasion that nobody really wants to mark, but they feel like they have to, just because this explosion highlighted the corruption, the mismanagement that so many Lebanese have become used to over the past 3 decades since the end of the civil war. And so it's a day of mourning, but people are also trying to turn it into sort of a national day to highlight the need for accountability and to end impunity, not just for the explosion, but also we've had dozens of assassinations of journalists, of opposition politicians, of thinkers since the 2000s. We're in the 3rd year of a financial implosion that the World Bank has called deliberate, for which, again, nobody has been held accountable. So it seems like whatever you look at in Lebanon, whether it be a food crisis, whether it be a financial crisis, whether it be assassinations, the link is that there is total impunity. And so we do expect protesters to be on the streets today. Last year, there were more than 10,000 people. It's always interesting to see, how many people turn out, because this is a tired population. It is a tired people dealing with so many different crises. But we expect protests this afternoon. And we'll have to see how that pans out. Oftentimes these end in a bit of violence because there's so much frustration.
Do you get the sense that people feel, given everything that's happening geopolitically around the world, you've got Nancy Pelosi stirring the pot in Taiwan, and then you've got the Russian invasion of Ukraine knocking Lebanon further and further down the headlines. Do you feel that people have a feeling that they've been forgotten?
Definitely priorities have changed. After the explosion, French President Emmanuel Macron came here a couple of days later. He visited the port actually before most Lebanese officials did. And there was this sense that an international solution might be coming. Macron got Lebanese politicians around the table. He told them, you guys need to do these things. You need to implement reforms. We need to push things forward. 2 years later, that French initiative has really gone nowhere. And now there are actually accusations leveled at the French that they, in fact, are not supporting this accountability process. For example, at the Human Rights Council, where there have been petitions to make this investigation international. The protesters today are going to be stopping by the French embassy on their path towards the port to sort of ask the French to support accountability. And yeah, Lebanon, if anything, has moved further into the eye of the storm since the explosion. Instead of going towards any kind of solution, any kind of accountability, any kind of economic recovery, we have seen things get worse. We've seen the currency now lose about 95% of its value. The war in Ukraine has impacted global wheat and energy markets, and that's also felt in Lebanon with the increase in oil prices. You, of course, know that we haven't had 24-hour electricity since the Civil War. Now it's about an hour a day. People are paying hundreds of dollars that they don't have for private generator subscriptions for just a few hours of power. There have been bread lines over the past weeks to an extent that we haven't seen before, probably haven't seen since the Civil War. there's always talk about solutions, but those solutions always end up being stopgap